have with us Ziaul Hassan. Ziaul Salam.
I'm alive.
Sorry, thank you. He's written this book called Being a Muslim in Hindu India, a provocative fact. So we just thought we must have a discussion with him on this subject. May I now request my colleague Tawkir to introduce our author. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Foreign Correspondents Club of South Asia. So I'll just have a brief introduction about you, and then you can take the floor. Ziaul Salam is a noted literary and social commentator, a former student of history from the University of Delhi. He is currently engaged in building bridges of commonality between communities by turning to the Quran and the Vedas. He has been associated with the Hindu newspaper for more than 23 years and has been its feature editor for the North Indian editions for 16 years now. Currently, he is its associate editor and writes on minority and socio-cultural issues. A prolific and acclaimed author, Zia released Of Saffron Flags and Skullcaps in 2018, in which he took on some of the key challenges to the idea of India. His other book, released in the same year, Till Talaq Do Us Apart, was a study of various diverse options available in Islam. His other books are Lynch Files, 365 Tales from Islam, Woman in Masjid, A Quest for Justice, Inside the Tablighi Jamaat, and Nikah Halala, Sleeping with a Stranger. He has also co-authored Madrasas in the Age of Islamophobia and Shaheen Bagh, From a Protest to a Moment. So I give the floor to the president, and then you can take it forward. Thank you.
Friends, we now have 20 crore Muslims in India. That means every seventh Indian is a Muslim. And in the whole world, you have 200 crores of Muslims. So that makes every 10th Muslim in the world lives in India. And we have friendly relations with all the Muslim countries. So I'm very curious to learn from Zia all about his book, because Muslims living in India are proud to be called Indian Muslims. They are very different from Muslims in other parts of the world. I will stop at that, and may I now invite Zia to tell us. He has 15 minutes to talk about the book and what his impressions are about being Muslim in Hindu India. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for hosting me, and thank you for having a discussion on the book Being Muslim in Hindu India. Just a few seconds back, Venkat Saab said we have good relations with all the Muslim countries. But the question is, do we have good relations with Indian Muslims? Or Muslim is better when he's out of India, but when he's within the India, then there is a cause for trouble. Now, the book came about simply because, as a journalist of around 30 years experience now, and as an author, and as an Indian Muslim, I felt it was my responsibility to my own generation and to posterity to talk of what is happening over last many years in our country. Remember, this is the wonderful land our ancestors chose in 1947 when they rejected Pakistan and the free passage to Pakistan and the theocracy of Pakistan to opt for a multicultural, multi-faith, pluralist India. It was the ultimate certificate of patriotism one could have asked for. Unfortunately, in retrospect, that does not seem to suffice for very many. Just before coming inside here, I was talking to Venkat Saab and a couple of other colleagues of his, and there was this talk, how come there is no Muslim leadership? which is a very valid question. You don't have the so called Muslim leadership today in India. And the reason is the Muslim community laid stock by the secular fabric of the country. When any leader of any community, any religion, he promised to deliver at the time of elections, and he delivered after the elections. The community rallied behind him. What was important was his work, development, progress of the constituency, and his religion was not paramount. Unfortunately, today Muslims' religion, Islam, is has become paramount in everyday exchange. Before we go back in time to how it all started, one bleak night of September 28, 2015, I'll ask all of you to just put your hand on your heart and ask yourself, what kind of society have we become when convicted murderers, convicted gang rapists are released on the Independence Day of India? Not just that, when they are released, they are garlanded by people, by the same society in which you and I live. We cannot claim to be living in on some other planet. A society where gang rapists, convicted gang rapists, are garlanded, treated to a box of sweets. Worse, young men touch their feet to get their blessings, their ashirwad. What kind of society have we become? And you know the reason behind it all? Because the victim was a Muslim woman. Those 11 men had ganged up together to criminally assault Bilqis Bano in 2002. Even 22 years later, for many people in our society, what was important was not the ghastly crime, but the religious identity of the victim. The message which was sought to be delivered was, if you go and murder a Muslim child, barely 4 years old, if you go and murder a Muslim woman or rape a Muslim woman, you are worthy of being called a hero and your blessings will be sought by the society. This book emanated from that responsibility to tell the next generation that when all these criminal acts, when this blatant disregard of our constitution and the idea of India was taking place, Indian Muslims and all those who believe in the idea of India, irrespective of their religion, who still uphold the constitution and hold it dear to their heart, they were not keeping quiet. They were not intimidated. They were not browbeaten. This book is an attempt to raise a voice for the idea of India. When I talk of the idea of India, Muslims are a crucial part of that idea of India. Contrary to what many would have us believe, that Islam came to India through invasions of Mahmud Ghazni and before that Muhammad bin Qasim. All I can say is I would try to pardon their ignorance. The first prophet of Islam, the first man on earth, was born in the Indian subcontinent in Sri Lanka. They still have Adam's foot. We have graves of 3 prophets in India. Ayodhya is as sacred to me as my Hindu brothers. And many Muslims hold that Dashrath, the father of Sri Ram, was the 4th generation from Hazrat Adam alayhi salam. India is my land, as it is of anybody else. Islam came to India through birth, not through invasions, and later through Sufis. The first mosque in India was built even before the Qibla was changed in the Quran in the year 622. Then that was in Bharuch in Gujarat. Then the next mosque, which is well recorded as the first mosque in India, came up in Kerala in 629. The Prophet breathed his last in 632. Who was invading India at that time when these mosques came up? They came up because they were traders who were coming from the Arab world, from Bahrain, Oman, etc. And they were having normal business dealings with India. One Hindu Raja of Sindh, he constructed a mosque over there. because he had business to do with people from the Arab world. That is how Islam came here, not through some invasion, as many in the political dispensation would have the larger society and polity believe. This book is an attempt to expose those lies. People who are uncomfortable with multicultural, multi layered, pluralist past and present of our country. They want to dispossess Indian Muslims of their identity. That is why there has been a sustained effort at rewriting medieval history. And when I say rewriting medieval history, I'm doing it on a note of generosity, because what they are doing is just concocting history. They are uncomfortable with the facts that the Mughals ruled here from 1526 to 1847, but they ruled as political rulers. They ruled as the sons of India. The armies of Akbar were led by the Rajputs. Aurangzeb gave employment to Rajputs, and there were more Hindus in his administration than at any time in medieval Indian history. Even Shivaji had Muslim commanders. Rana Pratap had Muslim commanders. History is not black and white, it's all gray. What this government wants and certain political parties want is to divide us on the basis of religion. This book here is an attempt to tell us that we have had a shared past, and inshallah, we'll have a shared future. Having said that, we are uncomfortable but uncompromising with the present. We have a sorry spectacle today where a Muslim feels unsafe on the roads of India. When I say I feel unsafe on the roads of India, I don't mean myself as such, but I mean anybody walking the streets of this country, whom a country he holds dear, where he has been born, where he would probably die and be a part of the soil of the land. Today, when a Muslim is sleeping at home, he is dragged out of his bedroom all the way down the staircase, onto the lane and onto the town square. Batons rain upon him, hockey sticks, lathis, iron sticks, virtually everything is used to attack him. He's helpless. He was a simple man sleeping at home with his family after Eid celebration, where his Hindu neighbors had also taken part. Suddenly, a few hours later, that man is supposed to be a representative of a community, and the attackers are supposed to be representatives of another community. I'm referring to Akhlaq's brutal killing on September 28, 2015, in Dadri. When Akhlaq's body was finally surrendered by the administration to him, and his family members and dear and near ones tried to give him the final ritual bath, they were not able to do so. Because when they turned the body to the right, they discovered it was not possible because all the bones were broken. When they turned the body to the left, they could not do so because all the bones were broken there. What was broken was Akhlaq's body. What remains unbroken is the idea of India. As long as we speak up for the idea of India, no Akhlaq's killing can kill us. Because what happened in the case of Akhlaq, not only was he brutally killed, we had our Union Minister for Culture at that time, Mahesh Sharma, going to his village a few months later when one of the accused of Akhlaq's killing, Ravin Sisodia, had died in police custody. His family members refused to carry out the cremation. They alleged that he had been killed by the police. So the Union Minister went there to pacify them. And what best way to pacify an enraged neighborhood than to tell them that the murder accused, the man accused of lynching, was a brave soldier of India. He was wrapped in our beloved tricolor. This is an honor reserved for those gallant soldiers who die fighting Pakistan on the border or China on the border. This is not an honor for an ordinary person, leave alone a murderer. The message which Mahesh Sharma was trying to communicate: at the border, you kill a Pakistani and you become a hero. Within the country, you kill an Indian Muslim and you become a hero. After Akhlaq's killing, the media was outraged. There was great coverage of the tragedy. It made page one news everywhere. There were photographs, and for days on end, people talked about his killing. Except that the police thought it wise when they came to Akhlaq's house to collect evidence. The police did not try to collect the fingerprints or the footprints of the people who had attacked his house. They thought it is better to raid his refrigerator just to see about his food habits. Did Akhlaq consume chicken? Did he have beef? Did he have mutton? That was more important. His food habits and death were more important than the identity of the killers. With Akhlaq, a template was set, and killings continued, lynching continued of the innocent on the simple accusation that he was about to slaughter a cow. Importantly, nobody was caught slaughtering a cow. There were cases when men were transporting animals bought from the fair, cattle fair, to their dairy farms. They were dairy farmers. Some were just hired as drivers, yet they were killed. Yet it became the new normal in New India. Our media lost interest in it. And the media, which had made Akhlaq a page one news for days on end, slowly started pushing the news of lynching to the inside pages until it disappeared almost altogether. The message which the media conveyed loudly, clearly, lynching a Muslim was a new normal. It was like the sunrise sunset timings in the newspaper, buried in some corner, if at all. So many cases of lynching took place. 99% of lynching cases since 1947 have taken place since 2014, and 87% of the victims have been Muslims. How many times, I challenge all of you, have you heard the Prime Minister of India condemn a single lynching instance where a Muslim has been a victim? How many times has the Home Minister spoken up about it? They were citizens of India who deserved protection, who deserved a life of dignity. It didn't. After 2019, it got more brazen. Even the allegation of cow slaughter was done away with. Even the so-called manifestly Muslim appearance was not required. There were cases where the goons would just catch hold of a guy, a small vendor by the road, a small shopkeeper, or even a student, or somebody going to offer his prayers, and they would ask him to say Jai Shri Ram. Some said, others didn't. The fate was the same. It started with Tabriz Ansari in 2019. It continues till 2024. People are killed with impunity. And there's a difference. In the past, we used to have all these communal riots and cases of sad murders of people of both communities. They were Muslim killers, they were Hindu killers. There were Muslims who killed innocent Hindus during communal riots. There were Hindus who killed innocent Muslims. But in both the cases, the murderers tried to run away from the site of the crime, trying not to leave any evidence behind. But that was in the good old days, not in Amrit Kal. In Amrit Kal, the people who lynch, who kill for pleasure, make a video out of it. They put it up online because they have political masters who will stand up for them and maybe even reward them for it. For instance, the man who killed Afrazul in Rajsamand on 6th December 2017, it was, he not only killed him, he mutilated his body, then burnt him alive, captured it all on camera, uploaded the video on YouTube. A few months later, he was a candidate in Lok Sabha elections in 2019. We are living in those dark, bleak times where, unfortunately, we are not even allowed the luxury of grief. because one tragedy is followed by another with such alarming frequency that you don't even realize what all have you lost. I'm not talking here only of lynching. The attempt has been to erase the Muslim identity from the country. First, the medieval history was rewritten, so-called history, as I said. Then all the names of which had Urdu sounding names and supposedly built by Mughals or Sultanate people, their names are being rewritten. This government, this party is uncomfortable with an Aligarh. They were uncomfortable with Faizabad. Never mind if the name of Aligarh was given by the Marathas. They are poor students of history. They don't bother about those details. Same thing with Faizabad. They didn't realize that the Nawab made the place Faizabad because it was a place to flourish for businessmen. Faiz is profit. So it is a place of profit for people. It had nothing to do with religion. But because in your constricted mindset, you associate Urdu with a particular religion, you feel Faizabad has to be changed. What these people do not realize, Urdu has been the language which has been born here. And it is the language of all Indians, whatever your religion. I work for the Hindu. The Hindu's office is in Milap Bhavan on Bahadur Shah Zafar Marg. Now, Milap is not a newspaper owned by Muslims. It's owned by Hindu community gentlemen. Same for Pratap next door. And many of you who were there in the 70s would remember we had a film in 1975 called Jai Santoshi Ma, an out and out big hit. But the posters of Jai Santoshi Ma had the name of the film in Urdu. Urdu did not have a religion then. Today, Urdu has a religion. And that is why we need to speak up. And it's also not just about the names of cities or trying to erase history. It's also about basically being uncomfortable with the presence of Muslims in everyday life in India. That is why we have all these attempts to prevent Muslim women from wearing hijab, from Muslim men from offering prayers in masjid. In fact, so steeped in hatred are these people towards anything related to Islam that a helpless old woman praying in the basement of a hospital for the healing of her family member was served a complaint notice and asked not to pray again. Another man teaching in a college went to one corner of the park to offer his afternoon prayers. He was terminated. A bus driver of UP Roadways, he stopped on along the way because some people wanted to attend to nature's call. At the same time, three Muslim men decided to use that time to offer their prayers. Their prayer cost the driver his job because he was held responsible for facilitating the pronouncement or offering of an Islamic prayer. It's not just that. We have cases from Gurgaon where Friday prayers have been made almost impossible. Despite taking all the due permission from the administration, we have a case from Moradabad where the special prayer of Ramzan Taraweeh was being offered in the house of a local gentleman, a well-off man, and the people were served an FIR for a gathering for a prayer. This was the first time in the history of India. And it was the same state where the chief minister asked the bureaucrats to shower rose petals on Kanvariyas. It is in the same state where Muslim meat merchants have been asked to close their shops for 60 days the 78 days last year. 18 days of Navratra, twice a year, 9 days each. Then 59 days of the month of Savan. Nobody could eat meat. Nobody could sell meat. If this is not food fascism, then what is it? The list goes on. There have been attacks on madrasas in recent times and masjids. And for the first time in my life in Delhi, I'm a Delhi boy, if I say so, despite my white beard, I'm discovering Hindu brothers are in love with mosques. So every Ram Navami and Hanuman Jayanti, instead of congregating at a temple at the end of their Ram Navami or Hanuman Jayanti procession, they park themselves outside a mosque. They prefer to hoist a saffron flag or Hanuman flag at the dome of a mosque, the minar of a mosque, rather than going to temples to offer prayers. This is not just politicization of religion, it's an attempt to conquer India's minorities, just the way it was in ancient India when so many Brahmins uprooted Buddhists and built temples over there, just the way it was when so many Muslim kings attacked Hindu kings and built mosques over there. India, in the past, the fight was limited to the political dispensation. The unfortunate reality today is the hatred has seeped into the lifeblood of the nation. If it were not, then this book would not have been necessary. Thank you very much.
Thank you. The incidents you write about and you spoke, Zia, give the impression that India is no longer a secular state. The fact remains that India is the third largest Muslim country in the world after
Second.
Indonesia. And Pakistan has overtaken your number here. So, how do you look at the future of Muslims in India?
So, as a Muslim, I say just one thing Mayusi kufr hai. I live on hope. I don't give up hope. As I say in the book also, I end on a positive note. I draw inspiration from the Shaheen Bagh women who led a completely non-violent, peaceful struggle for the idea of India. For those of you unaware, these women held the Constitution of India in one hand and the Quran in the other. These were the women who had not come out to protest on the streets of India when Babri Masjid was demolished. They had not come out to protest when the triple talaq judgment was made or was about to be made. They did not fight for any specific rights for Muslims. They fought for the idea of India, for the Constitution of India, for Article 14 of the Constitution of India. And the fact that this movement was led by women and completely peaceful homemakers by and large, most of them, gives me hope for the future.
The session is open for questions. Those of you who have questions, kindly raise your hands and wait for the microphone to come to you. Identify yourself and ask a question. Thank you.
I'm Dr. Diwakar Goel. I'm chairman of Aero Academy Aviation Science and Management. As a frequent traveler to many countries, I have seen that what we are witnessing in our country, it's nowhere else in the world. जिया साहब ने जो कहा है उस पॉजिटिव नोट में, अगर आप रिलीजन की बात करें तो गीता का 7वां अध्याय और कुरान, आप यहाँ अल्लाह लिखते हैं, वहाँ कृष्णा लिखते हैं, उसमें कोई डिफरेंस नहीं है. There is a need to educate the people that we are a secular state. We have 4 religions. We need to respect every religion because the message is the same in all religions. I tell you, in our country also, situation is not so bad as picturized in the news media and all. Media is one culprit for doing all these things. Because I go length and breadth of the world and in my country also. I go to Lakshadweep. I am from aviation. I was heading the HR for all airports. Lakshadweep, Agati is 5,000 all Muslim tribes. And see, there is no religion there. I feel proud in saying I was instrumental in renovating the mosque there in my official capacity by the contractor because the population demands that. There were only one mosque. So the country needs proper education to the people. The young generation and all, they should know what is Islam, the real meaning. The people like Zia Saab should be there to clear the air. And I think government is also responsible to do that. This is my message, and I think Riyasa will agree with me that it's not very easy. Like your statement, I disagree that India is no more secular. India is a secular state. You can't ignore 30 crore people, and you cannot change the constitution. We have Christians, we have Jains, we have got Sikhs, and we are all brothers. So it is all media. I give 80% discredit and blame the media for propagating these kind of things for their own purpose, making highlights and all those things.
You have anything to say on that, Zia?
Say, I respectfully agree with much of what you say, but I don't agree with the media part alone. Because after all, it was not media which made lynching acceptable. If there had been any strong condemnation or positive action from the central government or the state government, this could have been easily stopped. Same for rewriting of history, rather renaming of Muslim sounding names of different cities. Media is merely an enabler.
Sanjay?
Yeah. Hello, sir.
Hi.
Sanjay from Arab News. I agree with whatever you say, whatever you said right now, and whatever is there in the book. But I also want to highlight that this the marginalization of Muslim also has led to the marginalization of all those who believe in secular India.
Absolutely.
So if a Muslim feeling insecure today, as a secular or a liberal, we are also feeling equally insecure.
That is why I keep telling people when they come to ask me to write something for the book, let's help build bridges.
Yes.
Remember, 60% of us are today, across religions, across regions, are fighting for the idea of India.
So my question to you is, if I rephrase it like, these secular liberals and those who really believe in the idea of India are also a new Muslim in India.
Pardon, I didn't get it.
Are they also a new Muslim?
The reality today is, nobody would like to be called a Muslim in New India. They don't want to have anything to do with the largest minority. Even the fact that I wrote this book and I was congratulated by many. In fact, just now while I was outside also, one lady said, "Aapne bahut himmat ka kaam kiya." The fact is, if you speak the truth today, you are called brave. And if you're Muslim, you are braver still.
Any more questions? Yeah, please.
There is one gentleman at the back.
Okay. All right.
See, there's a case is going on. Somebody called Subramania Swamy filed a case in Supreme Court. Remove the socialist and secular words in preamble constitution. So how do you see this thing?
Whatever he says, I take with 2 pinches of salt. And having said that, I'll come to that. What Subramanian Swamy is trying to get change in the court or through the court was attempted by this government immediately after taking over in 2014 and winning elections. Remember what were the full page advertisements back in 2014 on our Independence Day? They reproduced the preamble of the Constitution without the word socialist and secular in it. In that one ad, there was a message for the entire country.
Sir, one more thing is, just former Judge Justice Rohinton Nariman also said same. Sir told like that. Article 14, it is well settled. Equality before the law and equality protection of the law. It is says secularism also like that. Therefore, we need not secularism in preamble like that. He said that same thing.
That's
That's a
what
good
Narendra
thing
Modi
also.
also said, no, in 2014.
Yes, yes, sir, yes, sir. It's a good thing. Why? Because
But I'll
Indian
ask you a
constitution,
counter question.
Indian constitution means it's secular, already well settled. But why
In-
is that word in a
I'll
preamble
tell
only
you,
like that?
our constitution through Article 25 gives us, all of us, the right to practice and propagate any religion of our choice. Important word is not just practice, but propagate. And what are the anti-conversion laws which are being passed by various state governments with impunity? I'll take you back a little bit in time, back to 2021, when the Allahabad High Court gave an inter-religion couple complete protection, that they are both adults and they have the right to choose their marital partners, and nobody can browbeat them or separate them. What did the Adityanath government do immediately after that? After the High Court of Allahabad had granted inter-religion couple complete protection, the government went and came up with the anti-conversion laws. How different was it from what Rajiv Gandhi did in the mid-80s with the Shah Bano case? He flouted what the Supreme Court said through brute majority in the legislature, in Lok Sabha. And Adityanath and all the other consequent chief ministers of Madhya Pradesh, Himachal Pradesh, Uttarakhand, etc., have also mocked at the High Court judgment, and when they have come up with new anti-conversion laws, which are basically anti-human. You're denying an adult human being the right to choose his or her marital partner. Also, you are trying to control women's choice. You consider women to be just a child rearing machine. That is why you have a problem. If a Hindu girl marries a Muslim man or she converts to marry a Muslim man, but you have no problem if a Muslim girl marries a Hindu man, whether she stays Muslim or she converts. The idea is we are using their women to add to our numbers. That's a very sick way of looking at women, and it's a completely patriarchal mindset which comes through these anti-conversion laws. It's both communal as well as anti-women. So you were saying something?
I'm Nirmesh, editor of AgriNation, an agriculture news portal, though nothing to relate here. See, just you were talking about anti-conversion laws and this particular issue. There was a news in between, say 6 to 7 years back, when a Shah Imam's son got married to a Hindu woman. But that news was taken away from all the sites very quickly. But don't speak. I felt at that particular time that, including Muslims, everyone is being led by bad religious leaders. Though Shah Imam should have cleared that air, because at that time that love jihad issue was going on, at that too on a very high note. And my second question is that, what do you feel that if I say that the idea of India is dynamic, should it be static? Number one. And secondly, if it is dynamic, then how do Muslims see that about to repositioning themselves in this new idea of India? Or that's a question.
Fine. So you talked of Muslim leadership, that we have bad leaders. I think you're giving the community too much credit. We have no leaders. Forget bad ones. It's a community completely directionless at the moment when it comes to socio-political sphere. And yes, there are bad Hindu leaders, but mercifully there are good Hindu leaders too. And when it comes to your second part was about the idea of India being dynamic. Dynamism is important for any civilization, not just to survive, but to thrive, to progress. But what is important is when we progress, when we march on with the civilization, you do not leave anybody behind. It's like you think of your family or anybody's family. If one person of the family, a boy or a girl, say it's a very poor family and not very well educated, one person makes it to civil services or police services, then there's a ray of hope for everybody. and he tries to take everybody along. Somebody gets into the State Bank of India, somebody becomes a doctor, somebody becomes a journalist. So the idea is that nobody should be left behind in the family. And then what are we as a nation? Just one big family, probably the biggest family on earth at the moment. So he's saying something different.
Okay, let me see.
Just a minute, let her finish.
And I had a quick question. What do you think is the way forward? Uh, what do you think is the way forward? You've spoken about what has happened, what is happening in India. We have elections that is coming up. We kind of know what is going to happen. So, what is the way
I would like to
forward?
know from you what is going to happen.
I think most of us predict the BJP will come back to power, right? So, keeping that in mind, what do you think is the
We
way
must
forward?
understand we are sitting on this side of the Vindhyas when we make that prediction. Having said that, you are talking of the way forward. The way forward, as I said, I think to Sanjay's question, is when all of us stand up for the idea of India, for the constitution, for the spirit of India, which gives us equality, which does not discriminate between one citizen and another, which does not discriminate on the basis of whom you worship, how you worship. This change cannot be, and this battle cannot be fought and won by Muslims alone. What is imperative, absolutely essential, is for communities to join hands. Because, as one of our commentators used to say, Navjot Sidhu, the chain is as strong as the weakest link. So, the Muslims today need a strong helping hand. They cannot win this battle on their own.
Tawkir?
He's saying something.
So, you know that as you mentioned in your opening remarks about the history being rewritten, so you called it the so-called history. So I just want to know the past historical context of all Muslim rulers being anti-Hindu, though that is out of the reality. Is it fueling the current unrest?
Is it fueling the
Current,
unrest?
yes.
See, what is important is to know the truth. I don't mind if you don't read Romila Thakurji. You read somebody else, but at least, for heaven's sake, stick to facts. We can have our opinions, but facts are sacrosanct. Like I've often said in the past, they were good Muslim rulers, they were bad Muslim rulers, they were cruel ones, they were kind ones. But almost always, their battles, their alliances were out of political convenience. Not one of them had an idea of spreading Islam in the country. Forget through coercion, but not even through invitation. There is one big ruler we've had in the past, Alauddin Khilji, whose tenure was made a mockery of by that film Padmavat and Sanjay Leela Bhansali. He who is very fond of designer sets and beautiful looks and everything, but he came up with an ugly film, completely disrespectful of facts. Alauddin Khilji protected India from Mongol invasions twice. He united the country from Kabul to Andhra Pradesh. He gave us some of the earliest market reforms. He took action against black marketing of what we call hoarding or even future trading now. He was strong with corrupt officials. He was with the peasants. And he even said that I do not know anything about the Sharia. I work according to the scales of justice as I perceive them to be. He even did not know how to say his Friday prayers. Yet today he is being maligned because his name was Alauddin Khilji.
Anand? Use the question. Microphone.
Sorry,
please.
thank you. My name is Anand Sahai. I'm a journalist.
Okay.
Sir, we have read you for years. I think everybody here would know you.
So it's partly reflection and only partly a question. I will not take long. All the questions being raised around the issues that Zia spoke about with so much clarity, and if I may say so, eloquence, are being absorbed in an extremely peculiar fashion by the majority of the country. I mean social majorities. I'm not entering the field of politics. And it is with a sense of sorrow that I say that all the questions, whether they are articulated or not, are being thrown at the Muslim minority. What have they done? What can they do? Can you change? Can you change course? Can you change orientation? Not a single question is being turned towards the majority community in every way. Is our constitution not ready for change? Why on earth did we make it the way we did? Etc. etc. That's only one part of it. There are very many other parts. We need not dwell on that here. My worry, and from that flows my question, is that when I travel around the country, and this has not to do with Muslims, I find that people from a certain region are being given all the trade and industry contracts. And there's a buildup of some resentment about that. This is in the field of trade and industry, not resentment. The idea is to build up of resentment. So if you take steps which lead to a cultural putsch, putsch is like a takeover, like a military putsch, much of which we see in many parts of the northern part of India. That kind of a sense of being under siege exists. When I speak to I have grown up among Muslims as a small boy. And I see, even when they try to be extra friendly with people they've known all their lives, over generations, even then a certain amount of apprehension a shadow of an apprehension has crept in. So I find that extremely disturbing. And I feel, unlike what you said, sir, I feel that this is not the soil in which I was born. Something has changed. It's not changed in a way which arouses a sense of optimism inside me. Hence my question. And I don't expect Zia to answer the question. It's hard to answer. Hard to answer anybody, either a Muslim gentleman or a Hindu person or anybody at all. In case the resentment builds up, in case the dam bursts, then what do we have? The wretched dam burst before 47, and a crazy man called Jinnah came along. He was aided by colonial rulers, and there was a partition of the country. And then you're still fighting since 47. I don't know, I've lost track of how many wars we've had. So if the dam bursts right here inside, it may not lead to fighting. It may not lead to overt violence, or it may. But when it does not lead to overt violence, can it lead to something which is again extremely, extremely negative in every possible way? So is there a way out? Do you have any apprehensions of that? Or are you, unlike me, are you still, really hoping against hope that the idea of India, which we read about, that expression is a new one given by a political scientist studying in England. But the idea is a very ancient idea. Are you still hopeful that the idea will continue to beckon us? Thank you.
So I'll say a couple of things over there. You talked of society and you talked of hatred seeping into society and not necessarily politics. But I respectfully disagree there a little bit. It's for the first time since 1947 that we do not have a Muslim minister at the center. For the first time since 1947, we have a ruling party which does not have a Muslim MP. Until a few months ago, it was the first time that we had a party ruling at the center and a majority of states we did not have a single Muslim MLA until Hussain won in Tripura. So out of 1300, there is only one. And we have not a single Muslim chief minister today across the country. So the blame does not lie only with the BJP. It lies with the political parties of our nation today. After all, when Congress won Karnataka and Telangana, what was preventing it from giving the Muslims their due? The reality is our political parties are intimidated by the politics of Hindutva. So we have this sad, sorry case where Rahul Gandhi goes on a Bharat Nyaya Yatra but doesn't want to be seen with bearded Maulanas. Where Akhilesh Yadav goes across Uttar Pradesh campaigning, seeking votes of everybody, but not ready to use the word Muslim, preferring to use the word Alpsankyak or minority. Today, being a Muslim has become a crime on the political firmament of the country. You're talking of the social things, I share your apprehension. In social thing, I share your apprehension, but I am a little bit further away from you on that count. It's not just apprehension today. There is this very real fear of large scale violence in the country. And when I talk of large scale violence, I'm expressing fear of targeted large scale violence with silent, tacit support of the powers that be. But despite that, I do believe it may take time. 1 or 2 years may not be comfortable, may not be peaceful, and maybe it could be, God forbid, longer. But ultimately, as you said, it's a cliche, but it's a lived experience, is the idea of India, is the pluralism of the country which will prevail. It may not be in 2024, it may not be in 2026 also. But sooner or later, violence has to give way to peace. No war was ever won without declaring peace.
Disagree on one thing. Very clear. Use the microphone, please.
In political firmament, I said, it is.
That's okay. You have any questions? So mine all been finished. Okay. Yeah. Wait for the microphone. Identify yourself.
Sure.
Ask question.
Yeah. No, I'm going to ask only question only. Yeah, my name is Asad Ashraf, and I'm a journalist. And my question is, when we talk about, since we are talking about Muslim, the book is about Muslims. There's attack on secular India, there's attack on the secular ethos of the country, and we all have to deal with that collectively. But then, since we're talking about Muslims right now, I think that somewhere while we talk about Muslims and while we try to understand the problems that Muslims are having today, the discourse that we create is only around violence, and which is political violence, which is lynching, which is communal riots. But unfortunately, even today, we are not able to create a discourse which talks about economic marginalization of Muslims, social marginalization of Muslims, which has culminated into these kind of violence. Had Muslims been politically empowered, had Muslims been socially empowered, had Muslims been economically empowered, this kind of violence was not that easy. Had there been political representation, had there been a political Muslim agency like other communities have, I still think that this kind of to the level that we are at the level that we are standing today, it wouldn't have come so soon. So,
Okay.
Zia sir, I would like to understand this from you. What do you think? Should we not talk about? Despite darkest of times and despite very rare, for me, the hope, the glimmer of hope is very, very bleak. But then, despite that, I think that we should still talk about representation. We should
Okay.
talk.
I'll come to whatever you're saying. Unfortunately, I guess you came a bit late and we had talked of some of these things, and Sahai Saab also referred to many of those points which you have raised. Besides this political violence or general violence, as you talked of lynching and other things, we have talked of political marginalization in great detail in the book. I've already referred to political parties' inclination not to give more tickets to Muslims. The number has been going down. It's not about the BJP. I'll just give you one very small example. In Rajasthan, we know that there is alternate government formed between the BJP and the Congress. One time Congress wins, next time BJP wins. But since 47, there has been only one Muslim MP from Rajasthan till 2019. So how do we account for something like that? BJP came up in 1980. What was preventing it? Now you talk of social and economic marginalization. There is reference to this in the book, and I talk of a slogan given by a BJP MP in Delhi, or rather in NCR, where he talked of economic boycott of Muslims. And obviously, as another gentleman referred to, giving contracts to people of certain community and all those things. That's a lived reality today. You would have seen those cases from Gujarat where one gentleman was not allowed to run a restaurant because he was a Muslim guy and he gave a so-called secular sounding name to his restaurant. Another guy in Mathura, he was attacked because he was a Muslim guy and his dhaba was called Srinath Dhaba. So today, everybody is expected to just abide by the name of his or her religion. That is the sad part, and that is what we are fighting for. Because if you talk of Sri Ram being dear to all of us, and Sri Ram being Imam-e-Hind, you also expect people to give space to followers of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. It is just as simple as that. And there is also political representation. There is one reference in the book how constituencies are being delimited. For instance, in Assam, there were 29 seats before the delimitation exercise where the Muslim vote was crucial. After the delimitation exercise, the number has come down to 22. And we had the case in Karnataka and Telangana at the time of 2018 Vidhan Sabha elections, where every fourth Muslim found his name missing from the electoral rolls. So you don't allow 1/4 of the community to vote. You don't allow candidates to contest elections, and you redraw constituencies. In effect, you want to erase Muslims from the political map of the country. And when somehow they come to the parliament, the Muslim MPs are greeted with constitutions, not with cries of Jai Hind when they go to take oath on the constitution of the country, but by cries of Jai Shri Ram. Another Muslim MP, as we all know about Danish Shah, what happened? He was called a terrorist. To be a Muslim is akin to be a terrorist for many in the ruling dispensation.
Zia, you
He's
make.
asking something.
Sorry, yes.
जी अस्सलाम वालेकुम जिया भाई मेरा
अस्सलाम।
सवाल ये था मैं मोहम्मद तकी पुरानी दिल्ली से हूँ और एजुकेशन पर काम करता हूँ तो मेरा सवाल जो है कि जो आपका ये किताब है रबिशिंग मेडिवल हिस्ट्री के बारे में वो सवाल है मैं पूछना चाहता हूँ कि वो औरंगजेब के बारे में जो आजकल चल रहा है तो और लोग जो सोचते हैं आपने उसमें लिखा कि वो एक पीस ऑफ लैंड जो है उन्होंने दिया था तो ज़रा एक तो उसके बारे में बता दीजिए और दूसरा मैं पूछना चाहता हूँ कि मौलाना अखलाक हुसैन कासमी साहब को आप अच्छे से जानते थे तो वो कहते थे कि श्री राम भी जो है पैगंबर हो सकते हैं तो क्या
इस
इन
चीज का
दोनों के
मैंने
बारे
अभी
में
जिक्र इनडायरेक्टली किया था when I said many Muslims believe Dashrath ji to be the fourth generation from the family of Hazrat Adam. अभी आपने जिक्र करा औरंगजेब का
जी जी
तो औरंगजेब तो हमेशा से एक एवरग्रीन विलन रहा है हमारी हिस्ट्री की किताबों में और रियलिटी ये है कि आप औरंगजेब से कहेंगे कि उसने मंदिर डिमोलिश करा विच इज अ रियलिटी इन बनारस लेकिन आप ये कभी नहीं कहेंगे उस मंदिर के लिए जमीन किसने दी उसके परदादा ने जमीन दी उसका जिक्र नहीं होगा उसके दादा ने रिन्यू करी लैंड लीज उसका जिक्र नहीं होगा उसके बाप ने वो लैंड लीज रिन्यू करी उसका जिक्र नहीं होगा औरंगजेब ने भी शुरू में रिन्यू करी अपने रेन में वो लीज उसका जिक्र नहीं होगा मथुरा की जमीन का लीज शाहजहां ने रिन्यू करी औरंगजेब ने भी पहले रिन्यू करा फिर हमला किया जो हमले थे वो पॉलिटिकल रीजन से थे आप ये मान के चलिए देखिए औरंगजेब ने असम के मंदिरों के लिए जगह दी उज्जैन के मंदिरों के लिए जगह दी जैन मंदिरों के लिए गुजरात में जगह दी, तो बनारस में ऐसा क्या हुआ था, मथुरा में ऐसा क्या हुआ था। ये सिर्फ पॉलिटिक्स थी उस जमाने में। जैसे एंशियंट इंडिया में पुष्यमित्रा शुंगा बुद्धिस्ट लोगों को मारा करते थे और बुद्धिस्ट के सर काट के उनकी एक लॉट बनाते थे, पिलर बनाते थे। He was not fighting for Hinduism. He was fighting for aggrandizement of his own kingdom. वही चीज औरंगजेब की थी।
जब वो लाल किले में बैठते थे, सामने जैन
सामने
मंदिर था,
जैन मंदिर है, उसके
तो
साथ
जैन
में गौरी
मंदिर को
शंकर मंदिर
डेमोलिशन
है,
क्यों
और
नहीं
दोनों
किया गया?
चीजें महफूज रही थी औरंगजेब के टाइम में।
जब और
Yeah,
तो ये
I think
मिस
The lady has one final question.
okay.
मेरा नाम नजमा रहमानी है और दिल्ली यूनिवर्सिटी में टीचर हूँ मैं उर्दू की। जिया साहब, मैं बहुत लेट आई तो बहुत सा डिस्कशन मैं सुन भी नहीं पाई, लेकिन मेरा एक सवाल है।
देर आए
हम-
दुरुस्त है।
मेरा सवाल अपने आप से, अपनी कम्युनिटी से, और सो कॉल्ड है या नहीं है कम्युनिटी लीडर से भी है। हम आज बहुत से सवाल कर रहे हैं, वायलेंस पे बात कर रहे हैं, पॉलिटिक्स पे बात कर रहे हैं, मार्जिनाइजेशन पे, मुस्लिम कम्युनिटी के बात कर रहे हैं। सवाल ये है कि 1947 से सुकूत ढाका, बांग्लादेश बनने तक हमने क्या किया अपने लेवल पे अपने आप को अलाइन करने के लिए नई सिचुएशन से। उसके बाद 80 के बाद से, राम मंदिर के मूवमेंट शुरू होने के बाद से, बाबरी मस्जिद के टूटने, शहीद होने, जो भी नाम आप उसको दें, उसके बाद से अब तक हमारे जितने मजहबी लीडर थे, सोशल लीडर थे, या एजुकेशन के फील्ड में थे, एज एन इंडिविजुअल भी मैं अपने आप से ये सवाल करती हूँ कि मैंने अपनी यंगर जनरेशन को क्या, जिन हालात को मैं मुसलसल देख रही थी, हम अपने बचपन से सुनते आए कॉम्युनल राइट्स, पुरानी दिल्ली से हूँ मैं, पुरानी दिल्ली में जगह जगह होते थे, खत्म हो जाते थे, वो एक बड़ा बराबर का सा मामला होता था। आज मैं चिल्ला इसलिए रही हूँ कि मामला बराबर का नहीं रहा। ऐसा तो नहीं कि कहीं हमारी लीडरशिप ने दूरअंदेशी से काम ही नहीं लिया, हमने एजुकेशन पे काम नहीं किया, हमने और सोशल कॉन्टेक्ट्स पे काम नहीं किया, हमने सेकुलरिज्म पे काम नहीं किया, वो जिम्मेदारी हम लंबे टाइम तक मेजॉरिटी पे छोड़ते रहे।
जी, अब मैं जवाब दूं?
प्लीज।
ये दो
तो
हिस्सों
मैं
में
ये
इसका
जानना चाह
छोटा
रही हूँ कि हम अब क्या करें।
बहुत मुख्तसर सा जवाब देता हूँ कि जहां तक एजुकेशन का सवाल है, आपने बिल्कुल सही उठाया। मुसलमानों ने अनफॉर्चुनेटली तालीम की तरफ, शिक्षा की तरफ ध्यान नहीं दिया, और ये रियलिटी है, बहुत क्रूअल रियलिटी है, बिटर रियलिटी है। अगर आप आज दिल्ली से गाड़ी निकाल के 400-500 किलोमीटर दूर हाईवेज पे ड्राइव कर लीजिए यूपी की तरफ या हरियाणा की तरफ, आपको हर 20-30 किलोमीटर पे एक सेंट पॉल्स स्कूल, सेंट माइकल स्कूल, मदर टेरेसा स्कूल मिल जाएगा। आपको कितनी बार खदीजा स्कूल मिलेगा? और ये उस कम्युनिटी की हालत है जिसका कि जो सबसे बड़ा ग्रंथ है कुरान, उसका पहला शब्द क्या है? इकरा। व्हाट डज इकरा मीन? रीड. So the community, instead of taking to the ways of education in a big way, is lagging behind badly, and that is one of the reasons why we are economically impoverished. But you talked of political leadership. ये चीज मैंने पहले आंसर करी थी शुरू में. The Muslims of India, which was a sterling advertisement for the secular spirit of the country, after Constitution, they laid stock by the secular fabric of the country. They were happy to walk behind a Jawaharlal Nehru or a Rajiv Gandhi or whatever at different times. They did not feel the need to groom Muslim leadership. If a Hindu leader, irrespective of where he came from, delivered in the constituency, he was welcome rather than a Muslim leader. I'll conclude by giving you one very small example, and many may not agree with me. I come from Rampur. वो कहते हैं ना मेरे क्या जन्म भूमि and कर्म भूमि type. That way. Rampur has always been ruled by Nawabs, but it is among the poorest townships across North India. And Azam Khan has been the MLA, God knows, for 8 times, 9 times. Now he is inside jail. He's also been an MP. But have you seen any educational development in Rampur all these years? Any Navodaya Vidyalayas, any factories being set up, job creation? Nothing. Azam Khan has always won elections on emotive slogans. Muslims of Rampur have rallied behind him on his emotive slogans rather than concrete work at the ground level. And therein lies the tragedy of the community. When you rally behind a secular leader, in the case of Rampur, there was a marked change, but only for 5 years. In 2004, we had actress Jayaprada who became the MP. She built bridges, 26 of them. She gave medical help to workers of BD over there and Zari workers over there. She established a Delhi Heart kind of market over there. But it all came to nothing after 2009 because politics overtook the township. It's for the community to understand where its actual interest lies. Will you be swayed by politically, emotionally charged slogans, or do you want to take to the ways of the Quran and tell everybody, read, because Allah Ta'ala created this world, and this world has to be explored, experienced, as the Quran says. Introspect about things around you. Don't be a blind follower.
That's a very interesting question. Okay, all right. Hold on.
Let's end on a happy note.
हेलो जैसे हमको औरंगजेब के साथ मंदिर के साथ जोड़ा जाता है नेगेटिव तरीके से, क्या हमें दुबई वाले मंदिर से जोड़ा जाएगा पॉजिटिव तरीके से?
I think it's a very good comment. But we don't have to look at Dubai for the temple. The fact of the matter is, मैंने अभी कहा था, औरंगजेब ने मंदिरों के लिए जगह दी थी, मंदिर बनवाए थे. तो आप पॉजिटिव चीज को याद रखेंगे या नेगेटिव, ये हमारे ऊपर है. लेकिन हमारे पॉलिटिकल लीडर्स ऑब्वियसली डिस्ट्रक्शन में यकीन रखते हैं, बिल्डिंग में नहीं. हमने बाबरी मस्जिद के केस में भी देखा था.
Well, it's been a very interesting discussion. These unfortunate incidents that have been making headlines during the past 10 years are, I would like to believe, are an aberration. India is primarily a secular country. It will continue to be so. And I have no doubt in my mind whatsoever. And I invite Simran to propose a vote of thanks before we present a memento to Zia.
From all of us here at the Foreign Correspondents Club, Mr. Zia, a big thank you for coming here. We've had a very wonderful and interesting discussion, and I'm sure there are people who would want to talk more about this with you once we are formally over. This was broadcast live on the Facebook and Twitter page of the FCC, and the discussion will also be stored in the archives section of the FCC Facebook page. So if any of you want to go back and listen to the discussion once again, it will be available in the archives section. Also, a small request, if anyone is filing a report on this discussion, please do mention that the interaction took place at the Foreign Correspondents Club today. And once again, from all of us, a big thank you.
Thank you.